it's going to be of great interest in a second. I'll tell you why. Anyway, there's a very great follower after the passing of the Baal Shem Tov. He was the eldest Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, and he was called Reb Pinchas Koritzer. And he was a Kohen, and he was a very amazing person. But he didn't accept the leadership of the Maggid. And he had, like, after the Baal Shem Tov was Mistali, he had a separate little sort of, chota of his own, but he was very famous. People knew about him, and he had a lot of effect. But he wasn't a follower of the Maggid. But he knew about the Maggid, of course. And he knew about the Alter Rebbe. And he was very, very impressed with the Alter Rebbe. And he tried to get the Alter Rebbe to come to him. The Reb Pinchas Koritzer, he wanted that the Alter Rebbe should go away from the Maggid and come to him. So there's a whole ma'aseh. You know the story about the complaints against the Chassidus is spreading out the Kabbalah and the Panimis, and that's not what the Baal Shem Tov meant and everything. There's a person, people who had that complaint against the Alter Rebbe. So once it was a meeting where all these people came together, and the Alter Rebbe came also, and he was coming, the Reb Pinchas Koritzer, to that meeting to complain about the spreading of the Panimis Ater too much. That's what he claimed. And he stepped, into the bathroom, and he found a page of the Chassidus on the floor of the bathroom. Right. It must have fallen out of somebody's pocket or who knows what. But he found a page of the Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe and the Maggid were teaching on the floor of the toilet.
No!
So he saw that as a symbol in the Shemayu that, it's not good. So he was, even stronger now with his opposition, you follow? Yeah. And he was a Kohen, and a tzaddik like him, and a Kohen. The people were worried that he would throw a kapeda, you follow? So he came out, he's stepping into the toilet, and he came into the hall where all of these people were, and he was ready to drop a serious kapeda, you follow? And the Alter Rebbe was very, very observant. So the Alter Rebbe was there, and he saw that, and he saw on his eyes immediately. The Alter Rebbe understood what he was after. So the Alter Rebbe ran up to him and intercepted him, and he said, "Emshul lecha moshel, I will give you a parable." How do you call it? A moshel. Now you know the moshel. He said there was a king, a great king, that had a son that was very sick. And all the doctors said they don't know anything. They have no media anymore to help the son. And all of a sudden there came a big chacham. And he said, "King, there's no other Eitzah. You've got to take the stone at the top of your precious crown. And you've got to take that stone and, crush it, and give your son to drink with water, that stone in the crown. And you see, that's the only thing that's going to save your son." And they did that, and the son gradually got better. And he, Baruch Hashem, he was all right. And so the marshal was that stone at the crown, that's the Panimis of Torah, you follow? And so we're holding now, by the time you've got to break that down into particles, and you've got to give it to the Yidden, what they're the son of the Melech, and they're facing a very difficult time. And they're sick, and they need to be made well. And this is the only way, you follow? That's what the Alter Rebbe said to Reb Pinchas Koritzer.
Right.
Never heard the story? I'm sure you did. Yeah. So, Reb Pinchas Koritzer was affected. He quietened down. He said, "Im Kain," he says, he's not going to make a kapeda, and he understands now what they said, and he quietly left the meeting because he didn't agree with them, but he could no longer question the rectitude of what they were doing, because that marshal really won him over, you follow?
Mm-hmm.
So this Rapinus Koretz, he never wrote any Sfarim, but his Talmidim wrote down all sorts of things. And just in recent years, in the last 10, 15 years, they've given out Sfarim, but they found all these, it could be a sort of a general anthology of things that he'd said used to be there before. But this is very Masudah, and they've made Sfarim, but they got it all very Masudah according to the Parshas, and things that he said, the Rapinus Koretz. You follow?
Yeah.
So, I happen to find in the sayings of the Rapinus Koretz on this Rashi. Why did Rashi say, B'chokmosei u'b'tfilosei?
Right.
So, I could go into all the details, but we're going to go to the main point. And he says, there are Pinchas Koretz, he said there's a Zoya, it's written in the Zoya HaKodesh, right near the end of Parsha Chukas in Bamidbar, way over somewhere, where you got to have a, how do you call it,
spectacles,
pincer knowledge of all the passages of the Zoya, to put the spotlight on that particular. So what's written over there, it's mamish a piliplos. When you read it, you just, you get stirred. And the Zohar Kodesh says that all your mitzvahs, and especially your davening, have to be preceded by a ruach, a kodesh azar, of kedusha, ruach of kedusha. And where does that come from? He said it comes from the study of the main inyonim about Hashem and Elokus. That's what it says. And if you have that study and you get lit up by that, and Hashem gives that to you in the proper ruach, then your davening is another davening altogether, and Hashem listens and he hears your davening in a very special way. Yeah, that's what's written in the Zohar. It's brought down, we say in davening, in the Psuchi de Zimra every day, towards the end of the Psuchi de Zimra, it's written, Yosef Bruchai Yizlu Mayim, that the Eivishter sends a ruach, a breeze or a wind, Yizlu Mayim, and then the water comes down. That's exactly what's happening. So the Zohar Kodesh says, what is that ruach? He gives you the seichel to realize you've got to understand and have chokmah, and then your davening is another davening altogether. Yeah. Then the davening, mashu acher v'gamrei, and then the davening affects the world. That's what he says. The Zohar Kodesh. Yeah. So the Pinchas Koretz, he writes that he believes that that's Rashi's makir. Why? Because Rashi says that Yaakov Avinu is saying, and that's according to the Targum, Onkelos and the Gemara, that Yaakov Avinu didn't fight any wars, he did it all through his davening. Yeah? So Rashi's worried about what sort of davening is it. People all over daven, but they don't, cause the whole Emori to be bottled, and they don't get things out of the hands of a person like Esav and the Emori and what they're going to do. What sort of davening is this? He's not going to have any davening. And the two things in davening, there's davening and there's requesting, and but how do you make that real? How does it become good? First of all, you have to have chokmah. Now, when I saw that, I thought to myself, that is like Rabbi Pinchas Koretz going over to the Alter Rebbe's camp. That's exactly what the Alter Rebbe said. And he didn't agree. He claimed that he couldn't see it that way.
Right.
But he brings Mefurish that he says, only b'chokmah, then the davening is a davening. And so what is the Chokhmah? What is that Indian of learning? And the Zohar Kodesh says to learn about the principles, but to get to Elikus and all that, what is that? That is Teres Achsides. Shalom Aleichem. You follow? This is Teres Achsides. But if you have Teres Achsides, then your davening is a davening. And that's what Rashi says. You want to beat the Amoiri. You want to get things out of the Amoiri. You have to learn a bit of Chassidus, and then you have to think about it, and then daven. Yeah. And that is just such an amazing statement. And he puts it he didn't write it. It's one of his Talmidim reported it. You follow? He didn't write the Sefer. It's what they say over in his name. And here's this amazing passage from the Rapidus Koritzer. And he was a very great man, so I don't intend to imply that he was not a great man. He was a Kohen, a tremendously great person. So, Lefi said, that's why Rashi sees at this point that he has to learn that the Hedikot, the Chelev, and the bow, they are two different stages in how you have to daven. And he doesn't disagree with the Targum and the Gemara. He doesn't disagree with them. They're right, but he's showing you how do you get to that. How do you make the tefillah active? How do you make it be poel? You know? So that's the basic message. Over follows Lefi said, but this is like a huge view of the whole Indian of Avodas Hashem. The great Talmidi Hamagid didn't necessarily agree with this, but Lepoyo, everybody does it. When I say everybody, I mean all those who have Epizakesha with the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, all of them ultimately they come back to this. And now I'm telling you a lot of stories, so I'll tell you another little story. I was once on a plane coming back from the Rebbe to Eretz Yisrael, and the previous Tzanz Rebbe, down here at Tzanz, their previous Rebbe, he was called the Kloisenberger. He came from a town in a sort of Czech Hungary called Kloisenberg. And he was the Rav there, but he was a direct descendant from the Chaim Tzanz, the Tzanz Rav, the first Tzanz.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a direct descendant. And he was captured by the Nazis. He was in Auschwitz. Absolutely unbelievable stories about him. Now he used to daven very late. He would start, coming in maybe to his minyan. There were always a group of people that waited for him every day, and they were his minyan as they davened with him, and they weren't sure exactly when he's coming. He would all of a sudden come in, and then they would start. So he davened, after the Zman Tefillah. So I'm on this plane. All of a sudden he comes up, the Kloisenberger comes up onto the plane, and he's accompanied by a minyan, at least, of the Hasidim, and they got the whole central part of the plane, all the seats and everything on that central sort of part. They're all for them. So I had a seat over on the side, and I wasn't all that very far from where he was sitting. So, with a little bit of peekaboo, which I think you should always be ready to do, I was sort of watching, careful. So then all of a sudden, one of the Chassidim comes over, and he says, listen, he said, this Rebbe now is making a time that people can go over and say, shalom, and come over and give shalom. And he said, we heard that you're, from Chabad, maybe you would like to come over and give shalom to the Rebbe. So I'm just coming from the Rebbe. I've been by the Rebbe, so I'm on this plane.
Yeah.
So I had a moral struggle, you know.
Right.
You know, in Lubavitch, you don't go to other rivers, you know. And yet, on the other hand, they asked me if I would come and give, shalom. So I felt I had a whole moral struggle, and I said, it's not nice if I don't go, you know, it's not proper.
Yeah.
So I got up and I pulled myself together, and I went over and I gave him shalom, you know. I said, shalom aleichem. And he looked at me, he had this beautiful face, you have no idea, it was mamish, pile plus, koyer, and chokhmah, and everything. He was a very beautiful, just beautiful, you know, in shape. And, so he said something to me, and then I sort of, so this chassid that brought me over to him, he gave me a stuk like this, and he said, ask something. You know, if you're already here, you know, ask something. So all of a sudden it occurred to me, I don't know why, you know, I said to him, you know, that the Misnagdim have a big problem with the Hasidim, that they daven after the Zman Tefillah, you know. And I knew that he would get the hint, because he always davened every day after the Zman Tefillah, you know. He came in for that, and he would daven long also. But he was a very amazing person, because later we davened Mincha. They davened Mincha with him, and he davened Hashem Esrei. But it would be good if everybody on Yom Kippur would daven Hashem Esrei like that. Amish Pila class. No. It was that Vayhi is very different than in Lubavitch, but beautiful, absolutely. So I asked him that question, because, you know, I knew that that would sort of, you know, in a way stir him, you know. So he was very, very clever, you know. He looked over and he smiled slightly, you know. As much say I realized, you know, the thrust, you know. So, but I was interested to hear, you know, because he was very big in halacha, you know, what is his view on this matter? So, you know what he said to me? He said, by uns, in Yiddish is it by us? Yeah. He said, we hold that it's better nicht davenen in der Zeit, it's better davenen nicht in der Zeit, wieder nicht davenen in der Zeit. So what does that mean in Yiddish? He said, we hold that it's better to daven not in the time, rather than not daven in the time. Yeah. You got it? Yeah. Very clever, very beautiful. You got it? Yeah, Mamish Bull. He said it's better to daven not in the time. Yeah. So then he said, but you know, people have a complaint that if you want to, you know, prepare and daven along and everything, start very early, you know, start way back and do all your things you want to do, and then you'll get to the right time, you know. So he said that there's a Gemara in Masechta Brachas. You hear what the Gemara says right near the beginning. That one of the great Tanoim, he was called Abba Ben Yomin. That's right, Abba Ben Yomin. It's written that he used to daven Shacharis immediately after he got up from bed. And he said that all my days I was very, very medactic to daven that my prayer should be close to my bed. That's what it was. That's the expression, meaning that very shortly after I got up, I would daven. So he said, I was mitztayer on this all of my life. I had tzar, you know, and effort to do this all of my life. So he says to me, the Kloisenberger, he says, Was hat gedacht mit Steyr sein? He said, why did he have to have Tsar? If that's the way he wants to do it, then do it. You understand? Anyway, he said, it's not easy. It's very, very hard to daven straight away when you get up. Oh, you guys, I don't know how to give it over. It was so beautifully full of, how do you call it?
Sounds
like
rather-
humor, the way he said it. But it's so true. He said, in order to daven straight after you get up, oh, that's a tremendous effort, you follow? And he said, only the Heilige Abba Ben Yomen was able to do that, because he was a Tana, and he was a very holy person, the Abba Ben Yomen. He was able to daven immediately after he gets up, you follow? But he said, other people, and you know, in our time, in our generation, we can't do that, you understand? We have to prepare, and we've got to work hard, and you know, so he said, even if we get up early, it's going to take a long time until you're ready.
All right, this guy? Charlie?
Oh, that's him. That's him.
Whoa!
So you met him on the plane?
That's him.
That's crazy!
That's
That's so cool.
Okay, so,
That's
Anyway,
so cool.
look at that later. If you don't
Yeah,
mind, I
okay.
want to finish.
all right.
So,
We're over time anyway.
here am I standing there, and my eyes are gradually jumping out of my head, you know, because that raya from Abba Ben Yomen is just so beautiful, you know. It's such a chap. You know, why do you have to be mitztayer? You know, if you wanted to do it, do it. No, it's a very big effort, and you can't. You have to. Ordinary people can't do that. They got to prepare a long time, and they got to be ready and all that. So in Tzans, they don't necessarily teach the way the Alter Rebbe and the Middle Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab taught. You have to prepare for that. But Lepoyo, they're great leaders. That's what they teach, and that's what they hold. That you have to do it. Because that all the followers of the Maggid, don't go away now, right now. All the followers of the Maggid. Yeah? They all gave down and it all came out that only through Chokmah are you able to daven. You have to have Chokmah and then you can daven. That's Rashi, you follow? Oh, that's the Heilige Rashi. Rashi says that without Chokmah you can't have Tefillah. And nobody knows where did he get this from, like the Marshal said. And so the Pinchas Korach said that he was the Alter Rebbe's opponent. He said exactly what the Alter Rebbe said. He says, no, you've got to have Chokhmah in order to bring your davening into a davening. You understand? You've got to have Chokhmah, you have to learn Chassid. That's what Yaakov told Yosef. He said, how did I get this out of Esau? How did I davened, I didn't make any war, you know. I didn't make war with a sword and with a duet. I made it, how do you call it? Yeah, through my davening. That's the way it happened. But not stone, you know. It was davening with chassidus beforehand, you follow? And it was davening, and that's what beat Esau. And that's what beat the Emoiri. And you know what, the Friedrich Rebbe and Amaima comes along, hello, the Friedrich Rebbe and Amaima says, why is Esau, why is he called Emoiri? Or why do Beklawa they called Emoiri? Because their whole thing was Dibba, but not Dibba in the right way. You know.
Yeah.
And he said, Dibba is one of the greatest powers that man possesses. The ability of speech is very peculiar to man. Of a matter, the Indian of speech runs our whole existence. And it all depends what you say and how you say it. You follow? And therefore, Lashon Hara is like killing the person that you speak about. Because it's a very, very unbelievably powerful koyah. Of a matter, that's what Rashi says. That if you want to beat the Emoiri, you want to beat the Koyach of Dibba, the Friedrich Rebbe brings it. He said you want to bring the incorrect way of, how do you call it, speaking, that runs your life in the wrong direction. The only way to do it is to learn before davening. Chokmah, Utfila, you follow, Chabatska. That's the only way. What is this whole thing with bringing the Geula Shlema, Rabbeinu Shalom? What is it? You have to daven for the Geula. You have to daven. It has to be the Inyan of Tefillah. And the Rebbe said it. The Rebbe said that when you say Es Tzemach David, you have to think carefully, and you have to be in it, and you have to live with it, and shrei. When you're davening, you can't shrei when you're in the middle of Shemoneh, but you have to shrei from your heart. And it's Tzemach David out from a hero touch me. It has to be swear. There's no time anymore. Rabbeinu Shalom. No time anymore. Everybody sees it. Yeah, you guys started off with a question about what's going to be with the ganze Meise, with the Iran, because there's no time. It's urgent now. The Geula Shlema. You have to bring her up, Moshiach, and you have to daven and shrei with your heart, and you have to beat all the Imoiriyas, they all talk, wrong and evil and big, but you beat them that way. Just a ehrlich davening, and with that you'll beat them. With that, you'll bring down the killer of Mashiach B'Poel Mamish.
Amen. I know.